This is Nick Allen. Nick is a fifth grader at Lincoln Elementary with a creative and rebellious personality. This is Mrs. Granger. Mrs. Granger is known as the hardest teacher at Lincoln Elementary. It is rumored that she even has x-ray vision. Mrs. Granger's favorite object is the dictionary. On the first day of class, Nick asks Mrs. Granger where all the words in the dictionary come from in hopes of wasting class time. Mrs. Granger tells Nick to research his question and present it to the class the next day. Nick decides to have fun with the oral report. He gets the idea to make up his own word. He decides to call a pen a frindle. Nick tries to waste the entire class period with his report. Mrs. Granger says that people give words meaning and then gives the class homework. Nick and his friends start to use the word frindle more often. Mrs. Granger has Nick sign a letter that she promises to send him after the word frindle dies out. It spreads throughout the school and eventually causes tons of students to stay after school for using it. Mrs. Chatham, Lincoln Elementary's principal, visits Nick's home and tells his parents that he is responsible for causing all of the trouble. Nick tells his parents he is not going to stop using the word. Judy Morgan, a reporter, visits the school to find out why students are being held after class. The article ran in the newspaper the next day. Frindle becomes so popular that a business owner named Bud Lawrence started making Frindle pens. Nick's dad and Bud create a college fund for Nick from the profits. The word became common and a part of regular conversation. Nick asks Mrs. Granger about the letter, but Mrs. Granger says the word has not been forgotten yet. 10 years later, Nick is 21 and receives a trust fund and a package from Mrs. Granger. The package included a new Webster's dictionary, a handwritten note, and a white envelope. The note told Nick to turn to a page. When Nick opened to that page, he saw the word frindle. The note apologized for being against the word, and Mrs. Granger's favorite pen was included in the package. Nick set up a scholarship fund in Mrs. Granger's name and gave her a gold fountain pen with a note that said she could call the writing utensil whatever she wanted.